How you doing? How you doing? Welcome to the People's Card Shop. We have a case tournament today with over 50 players. We have some of the best players in Vegas ready to play some Origins. And right now we have Jimmy versus Matt. It's going to be Annie, played by Matt, and Jimmy is playing Master Yi. This is a classic matchup, a matchup we saw in Houston in the finals. So I wonder how it's going to go down. Normally, Annie is the aggressive deck, and Master Yi is the bigger deck trying to hold with bigger minions. And we know both players opening battlefields. Matt's going to be starting off with Zon Warrens, the very quintessential start for Annie, being able to discard cards, filter out the deck, set up big Vies, but more importantly, discard scrap heaps to draw two. And Jimmy's going to be starting off with Aspirant's Climb. Both players are going to have to win at 9 points. And just so you're wondering who we are, my name is Ed, and I'm joined with Michael. We have a YouTube channel called Conquer and Hold, and we'll be streaming all day the People's Card Shop. Yep, so we got a lot of players in today, some of the best players in Vegas, just practicing some of the Origins meta. This is going to be one of the last few tournaments of the Origins meta before Spirit Forge, so I can't wait to see how it transpires. Appreciate all the watchers. Thank you guys for coming out and supporting the People's Card Shop. We try to have tournaments all the time. We also have Monday night Nexus nights. We stream those every Monday at 6:30. And we're going to try to have a case tournament at least streamed once a month. So come check it out if you enjoy nice Riftbound content. Both players are just waiting for the clock to start.
And again, we are located here in Las Vegas at the People's Card Shop. We are doing an Origins case tournament, probably the last huge tournament before Spirit Forge is coming in, and we're all really excited for that.
Yep, I'm really, really excited. Can't wait for all the Spirit Forge fun.
They're about to start. Ed, today, what legend do you think might take it all?
I'm a big fan of Master Yi, but more importantly, I really do believe a lot of the players out here in Vegas are very good Master Yi players. So I would side on the air of caution and just say I think that deck's going to take it home this tonight.
I actually agree. We stream here every Monday night at 6:30 our local Riftbound tournaments, and our Master Yi players are really good, always on the top tables. So not only a strong legend in general in Origins, but the players here piloting today are very skillful as well. Seeing this Aspirant's Climb from the Master Yi player, I would have to assume it is probably a Dazzling Aurora version of Master Yi in order to get those extra turns to get the Aurora out. Once it finally hits the battlefield, then the game totally swings under their control. Aurora gamers are definitely strongest in this first game when there's no tech in the side deck put in against them yet. So this is the time that if you get your ramp cards, you get Aurora out really early, you're able to take over game one, and then in game two, hopefully your opponent doesn't draw the gear removal.
Yep. Definitely in set one Origins, Dazzling Aurora is one of the most powerful things you can be doing. Obviously in Spirit Forge, there's going to be a lot of gear removal. So I can't wait to see this game. Hopefully there will be a Dazzling Aurora played, and we get to kind of roll the dice, see what's on top of the deck. So we already know like the basic Annie deck list of like Zon Warrens plus Scrap Heap, trying to do the ill-fated combo of Ride the Wind plus Vi to kind of get the last 2 points. But just so everyone knows, there's two types of Master Yi decks. There's going to be a mid-range Master Yi deck that doesn't really play a gigantic top end. It plays more so little creatures, try to hold on to the battlefield, and kind of leverage the ability of Master Yi. But I'm pretty sure Jimmy is using the Dazzling Aurora version, which kind of leans into the orange ramp that lets him kind of play gigantic monsters in the late game.
My favorite type of Mastery is the Aurora, but in their side deck, they have all of the mid-range pieces. So instead of being Aurora in game 2 when your opponent's siding in their tech, you then take out your Auroras, take out maybe some of your ramp cards, and you're putting in early game units in your 2-drops, things like that, to kind of counter their techs. Because what is gear removal if you don't have Aurora anyway?
And then both players are starting off. So I just want to say thank you for coming out. We are going to be playing for a case today, and it's going to be some of the best players in Vegas. Both players are starting off with a mulligan. If I was the Annie player, I want to start off with an early 2-drop as fast as I can, something like Pouty Poro, just trying to get as many points as possible because the Master Yi deck is a slow deck to kind of start. But we're going to see how the Master Yi starts off first. If we're playing Dazzling Roar, we want to activate Engage. But you know what? A Zhonya's Hourglass is a solid, gear to be able to protect late game units. Sneaky Deckhand. Ooh, I love this Sneaky Deckhand. If you all don't know what Sneaky Deckhand does, it's a 3 energy 2-mite unit that lets you play in an open battlefield. So it's essentially just like Accelerate, but you get to summon it into an open battlefield. It's a very good turn 1 Annie for going second, being able to score a point, but also leaving 2 mana up. So it's basically like he went first with an accelerated unit.
I really like Sneaky Deckhand, especially with the Zon Warren's opening, because you're crafting your next turn plays. You go second, you automatically Sneaky Deckhand in the Zon Warrens. You're on the play, like you have the advantage now. You get to discard a card and hopefully draw into a new card that you can play on your next turn.
All right, if I was Matt, what I would want right now is even more 2-drops. I want to summon like a Traveling Merchant. I just want to go as wide as possible to threaten as many points as possible because that's how Annie has to win this matchup. They have to get the foot on the pedal onto the neck of Master Yi.
If not a 2-drop into a Noxus Hopeful, I'd be looking for an accelerated Kaisa. I don't mind not accelerating it, but I would want to get that point early because we're on the Aspirant's Climb, so we want to make sure that we are pressuring our opponent, and that is exactly what he does. He's going to play it in accelerated, go into Aspirant's Climb, get a conquer point, and when Kaisa conquers, we all know what's happening. She's going to be able to draw 1 card in order to replenish her hand.
And that's the beauty of the Annie deck. The Annie deck gets to play a bunch of the best red cards and just play it willy-nilly, and that's what makes it so great. It kind of has this toolbox of accelerated units plus powerful draw engines, just like the Kaisa.
Another thing about Sneaky Deckhand is in Riftbound, if you're holding 2, 4, 6, 8, you're able to win. Aspirant's Climbs, it makes that very difficult because it puts you on an odd number. But going first, playing the Sneaky Deckhand automatically, we are already on an odd number. So we are at 3 points here. When we hold, we are going to go all the way up to 5. So if we're able to keep on double holding, then we're able to get to that 9 pretty easily, negating the effect Aspirant's Climb actually has on the game just by having the Sneaky Deckhand in our opening. We're going to play our Tasty Fae Folk coming in tapped because we don't want to deramp because we probably have an Aspirant's Climb coming up. Tasty Fae Folk can come in accelerated and attack a battlefield, which would have been nice, but we know that Annie is able to keep up 2 mana at the end of every turn, can interact with that, so we don't necessarily want to deramp. Let's just play it a little slowly, play it for its normal cost. We're going to develop that Vi early. Vi is the key card in the Annie deck, being able to get so big from recycling back all those units from the trash and getting 1 point for each. So we're at 5. We are going to go for the double hold, keeping up a lot of mana. The thing in Riftbound you want to do is tempoing out in every game is super crucial, but in Riftbound we want to be able to keep up removal because the thing that's more important than tempoing out is point economy.
Ooh, and here comes the Dead Bloom Predator, one of the best 8-drops you can be playing in set 1. What Dead Bloom Predator does, it comes into a battlefield that has a unit in already, so it has Pseudo Accelerate and also has Deflect. It's a very strong unit, being able to just surprise your opponent, and with a flash here, it's able to push back both the Sneaky Deckhand and the Kaisa, so it's able to conquer, but more importantly, it concedes the 2 points from both battlefields, but protects both monsters. A great play from Matt.
Um, I love Flash. I think Rebuke would have been better, but he probably had Fight or Flight or something like that. But Mastery keeping up 1 mana worth of, mana up, that does give him the opportunity to have that counterspell available.
I like using the Flash mainly because it checks for something like Defy.
Now we gave Mastery both battlefields, so punching into both those battlefields, he is going to be able to rely on that Mastery +2 might bonus for each. But he's tapped out with only 1 mana, so we have to think about he only has 1 mana worth of interaction this turn, and we already have our Vi developed. Stack deck, let's see, we want to make the most out of our turn. Stack deck is also another card in the graveyard that Vi could eat in order to become bigger.
And here's the thing. So what oftentimes Annie does is tries to win through the combo of Ride the Wind plus Vi. And Vi is normally the combo card that you're looking for most often because with Vi, it could die and then you could lose the combo piece. But with the spells like Ride the Wind, the great thing about Annie is the Annie unit ability is able to add back Ride the Wind back. So right now, I am very okay with the Vi being out there just because the Ride the Wind can be added back or used as aggressively as possible and then be added back with the Annie.
For anyone who doesn't know what the Mastery Legend ability is, it's going to be very important this turn. It gives defending units +2 might, so that Deadbloom's actually 10 and that Tasty Faithfolk will actually be at 8 while defending. So we're going to buff up our unit with a Cleave. It gives it Assault +3 for the turn.
And then the Annie came back, adding back the Cleave to make the monster even bigger, +6.
I really like that play. He needed a double Cleave because he just wanted all that extra might, and then he's going to use it all right now.
And the awesome thing about Cleave being able to take out something like a Deadbloom Predator is oftentimes Deadbloom Predator is protected because it has Deflect, but Cleave is able to kind of kill the monster without it. And here we go, trying to kill the Tasty Faithfolk. There is 1 mana up, so an Unguard is the only thing that could be played besides something like a Defy.
So as long as we have over 12 might worth of stats going into that Deadbloom Predator on the bottom, we'll be able to take it without much worry having to go over the deny.
Ooh, and being able to draw a card off the Kaisa is super important here because what often happens in the Master Yi versus the Annie matchup is the Master Yi's monsters are just going to be bigger and stronger. So what the Annie player has to do is draw as many cards as possible to kind of get this big culmination of cards to be able to overpower the big battlefields that Jimmy's trying to set up.
The really rough thing for Master Yi right here is that his Tasty Faithfolk did get killed and had to use the Zonia's Hourglass. Tasty Faithfolk is the unit where you're okay with it dying because it ramps you and draws you cards. But in this situation right here, the Zonia Hourglass wasn't played from hidden. So if it's just straight up played on the board, the first unit that would die gets saved and recalled to base. So because we have to tempo out that Zonia's Hourglass a little bit earlier on, we didn't quite have the choice of who that Zonia's Hourglass protects. We're going to play a little bit slow, pass on to our opponent. We're feeling pretty good here as the Mastery player, keeping up our Deadbloom. If we're able to drop an Aurora, this is the perfect time to get back into the game, and we have the Aurora. Now we are in a very good position because we kept our opponent on an even amount of points, so they have to get to 9. So even if we lose both battlefields the next turn, they cannot win. So we get 2 turns of Aurora here to defend ourselves.
Yep, and the key point here is the Annie player needs to actually go to 7 because Asperin's Climb is in effect, meaning both players need 9 points to win. So oftentimes the Annie tries to win by getting 2 points off Ride the Wind Vi at 6, but the game plan is totally switched up because it needs to happen at 7 points to win. And a Tasty Faithfolk coming down from the Dazzling Aurora. Again, Tasty Faithfolk is a great card because it kind of plays this middle ground of ramp and being able to summon the Dazzling Aurora, but it's not really the card we want to be summoning off Dazzling Aurora. We want to summon as many stats as possible. And pushing the Dead Bloom Predator here, making sure to pay the deflect cost. Yep, pushing it up, and that's what often happens with the Annie deck. The Annie deck can't handle the big monsters coming from Master Yi and kind of has to use spells like multiple instances of Cleave or Fight or Flight or Rebuke to push the monsters back. Yep, just as a reminder, deflect is a optional cost. If you choose not to pay the deflect cost, you will not be able to resolve your card. And Matt paid the 2 mana for the fight or flight, and however did not recycle for the deflect cost. So then he ended up not resolving the fight or flight. So just remember that deflect, you have to pay.
He tried to use Fireflight, but it's an action.
Oh, it's an
Yeah,
action.
so I,
Gotcha.
our judge went over to tell him that you are unable to activate your fight or flight in response to something that is not in a showdown on your opponent's turn. Even if that was a reaction, you can react to the effect of the dazzling, but you cannot react on resolution. So once the Tasty Faithful hit the board, there was no available opportunity for that fight or flight to come out, even if it was in reaction, by the way. But Riftbound is such a fun and interesting game. A lot of cool rulings here. So we're going to buff up our Vi and push it into our top battlefield here. Tasty Faithful goes down, but as the Master Yi player, we don't really mind that much. We get to draw 2 cards, or draw 1 card, and ramp our runes.
And that's the beauty of the Annie deck. Every single turn, Annie gets to untap 2 runes. And if you think about it like that, over the course of the game, that's almost 14 free mana. And in these mana-based games, if you're able to kind of play more cards than your opponent, it's a good shot. And here it is, the Vi running into the Dead Bloom Predator. However, the hidden Zonia's Hourglass is able to protect it, send the Dead Bloom Predator back. And it's going to be a tough time for Matt, because one of the best parts about Zonia's is it protects your big monsters. Normally, the Annie deck needs to use spells or, limited resources to kill these big monsters, and being able to trade that limited resource for Zonia's is exactly where Jimmy wants to be.
Yeah, Matt's in a rough spot because of that climb, because of that very important turn where he pushed him off of both battlefields, kept him on that even cost of a point economy, and got the Dazzling Aurora. He is now able to stabilize. Any player would have won if the Dead Bloom was removed in that one instance where Annie used Flash. So now Annie really has to try, because he used Fight or Flight. Vi might go down here. A Rebuke isn't even strong enough, because if we rebuke that Dead Bloom Predator, he's might just play it right down anyway. So Annie has 5 mana available. A lot of 2 mana spells in the deck, so probably can use 2 spells at the minimum.
And choosing to fight or flight his own Vi, I really like this play, because oftentimes when you fight or flight the deflect creature, you end up deramping yourself. But being able to fight or flight the Vi, he concedes the point. However, he's able to protect the Vi. And the biggest thing is, the Vi is a source of just infinite might, not infinite might, but a big might that is able to kill the other creatures on the crackback. So it's a great play from Matt.
It also really protects that Vi, I like it way better than pushing their creature.
So if I was Jimmy, I would want to have like a challenge here or a charm. Just having, yep, there you go.
Good charm.
And that's the thing with these Master Yi decks and these, what is it called? These Dazzling Aurora decks. They basically want to set up these fat boards, and they play spot removal to kind of stop these big pushes that these other aggressive decks will be doing. So Charm pulling over the Annie and eats up Annie.
Charm is just a normal soul, not an action or reaction. It makes it a little bit weaker, but its effect is so strong that all of these big green decks run it. Moving an enemy unit wherever you want it, and if you move it to you, you get to start a showdown, and if you're bigger, because you got big guys, you get to win that showdown, and it's basically free removal. We're going to find your center. Look for some more answers for the following turn, because this next turn is the game-winning turn. If we can hold, we will go up to 8, and we don't necessarily win, but if Annie cannot win on this upcoming turn, we're going to get too many procs of Aurora, and too many gigantic creatures will come down.
And that's 16 might right there. But also, I want to point out, Jimmy revealed a very important card. He revealed, oh, and there you go. Matt basically conceding, saying, I cannot fight through these gigantic fatties, and Jimmy's taking it. You know what was crazy? It was 5-0. Matt was literally cooking Jimmy, but Jimmy stayed with the game plan. He knew what he had to do, set up a fat board, and use his spot removal correctly to kind of end up killing Matt, stopping Matt from just pushing through game.
Very crucial Dead Bloom Predator play. Very important. If he got that Aurora out 1 turn later, he would have lost for sure. And it was just unfortunate that the Annie player did not have another Ride the Wind. We did have to use the Annie early from the spell zone to pick up that cleave. We could have tried to save it in order to pick up the Ride the Wind again, because we knew we only had 1. But in that turn where we cleave Annie cleaved, we needed to make sure our Kaisa survived and no battle tricks, no funny business were to happen that turn. But that's kind of the cool thing about Annie, is that in your champion zone, you have a unit gives you any spell back from your graveyard. So any spell you want to use a second time, you got it. She's not the biggest unit, but she just recycles, or not recycles, reuses a spell by putting it back to your hand. Going into game 2.
Yep, game 2. What's really interesting, if you have not played Riftbound, in Riftbound, there are 8 card side decks, so the side decks aren't that big, but we also have to take into account the battlefields change every turn, which definitely affects the flow of the battle and, changes everything up. So even though there's only 8 cards on the side, there's a lot of options. And see right here in the battlefield, Matt is starting off with the Dreaming Tree, and Jimmy starting off with Obelisk of Power. Obelisk of Power is actually my favorite battlefield of set 1. Both players get to channel an extra rune at the beginning phase. So just as a reminder, that is an optional effect. So you can miss that trigger, so do not miss it. And Dreaming Tree, of course, whenever you target, the first time you would target a card, friendly unit, you're able to draw a card. So Matt's going to be able to leverage his fight or flights to protect his units, to also draw a card, but more importantly, he's able to draw cards off of cleave and other things like that. And here is where the Obelisk of Power might be biting might be biting Jimmy in the butt here. Matt maybe not having a 2-drop, but is able to stack deck and then add the 2-drop to his hand. Oh, and Jimmy is looking for cards here. He's disciplining to just draw a card. Maybe to try to draw into a engage the ramp here. And he's just passing. But what we can tell from here is Jimmy most likely is still playing the Dazzling Aurora version. Some people like to side into a more mid-range version against these aggro decks. But as we can see, if it all goes according to plan, Jimmy can still win through the Dazzling Aurora.
It was very unfortunate that Jimmy did not have the Catalyst on his first turn, because that's the beauty of playing the Obelisk of Power, is that you are able to play the Catalyst of Aeons on your first turn and ramp all the way from 4, and then you skip 6 and you go right to 8, and that gives you a perfect chance to be playing that Aurora 1 turn earlier. The earlier you play the Aurora, the more likely it is that you can actually win the game. We're going to stack deck, kind of take a peek here what's going on. Stack deck, I think, is probably one of the strongest purple cards in the game. It will be in every purple deck for forever. We're going to move up our Traveling Merchant to the bottom battlefield. When Traveling Merchant moves, you discard 1 card and draw a new one. So Annie likes to shape her hand and add cards in the graveyard for that Vi to get really big later on. We're going to tempo out our Kaisa.
And here's the thing. Matt is starting off with almost kind of the same strategy of just rushing down Jimmy, but it didn't work last game for Matt. But the biggest difference here is Jimmy does not have Aspirant's Climb. Now you got to win at 8. So this whole extra turn, Matt might be able to pull it through. And of course, untapping too with the Annie ability. Uh, at 6 mana right now, Jimmy might not have a card to play. It's very important to have open mana whenever there is 8 mana available for Jimmy, just to make sure to play around something like a Deadbloom Predator. And there it is. There's double ramp. Jimmy wanted this in the first 2 turns, but is drawing it now. Hopefully, he'll be able to cast Dazzling Aurora next turn to kind of fight this point discrepancy.
On Matt's last turn, he did try to accelerate that Kaisa, but remember, acceleration costs 1 power and also 1 mana. So if you don't have the 1 mana, you can't activate the accelerate on summon. So we'll move the Kaisa into the Dreaming Tree, draw an extra card, pull back our Traveling Merchant. It's whenever Traveling Merchant moved, so moving to a battlefield, moving back to base, he is able to discard and draw. We discarded a Ride the Wind, which is interesting. This is kind of telling our opponent that we have another Ride the Wind in our hand, or we're comfortable enough with our current hand that we're relying on Annie to pick that Ride the Wind back up when we need it. We're going to pass on to opponent, untap our mana, and we are going to have 5 mana floating into our opponent's turn. We could have something like a Fight or Flight, a Flash, in order to move our Kaisa back to base in case of a Deadbloom Predator. The additional thing that we'll get here if we use one of those 2 spells is we'll draw a card because of the Dreaming Tree. So we are going to flash out our Kaisa, move it back to safety, and because of Dreaming Tree, we are going to get an additional card. Dreaming Tree makes Flash, Fight or Flight, all of these movement ability spells. They get to replace themselves by drawing one.
And this is a very important thing that people need to understand in these matchups versus like Annie versus Master Yi is you need to be able to protect your units. Matt is very cognizant that this Deadbloom Predator was coming back, so he made sure he had Flash to protect it because he has a finite resource of monsters. The thing about it is Matt's monsters, it takes like 2 of them to counter just one of Jimmy's. So he kind of has to be able to protect them as much as possible. And that's the beauty of the Dreaming Tree. He's able to protect his monster, but also draw at the same time. 4-1. It is about to get to that pivotal choke point. And he really wants to get to 6 points. And that's kind of the dream here because of, the Ride the Wind Vi combo.
This Annie player has been able to consistently draw a lot of cards this game with his Kaisa Conquering and the Dreaming Tree with his Traveling Merchant. Remember, Traveling Merchant doesn't give you a card, but he's card selection. You get to say, I don't really need this card right now. Let's get a new one off the top and see if that one is better. It is unfortunate that we don't have the Aurora and we chose to play the Deadbloom Predator because it is kind of showing our opponent that we didn't have the Aurora. Maybe we really wanted to take the Annie off of that point, which I do agree with as well, to put him on the odd number of points. So Kaisa going up to 5, drawing a card. And we already held our top battlefield, so we cannot go to 6. So keeping our opponent on 5 means that they'll go to 7 next turn, if anything, and then they cannot win in the following turn, hopefully netting us an extra turn to get Aurora. Jimmy's been doing a great job at having our opponent's like points in his mind as he's making the plays and making sure that he's getting himself these extra turns by keeping them on odd amount of points or even amount of points when the Aspirant Climb comes into play when it truly matters.
And the Deadbloom Predator coming up to the stack of Kaisa plus a sneaky deckhand. That's going to be 7. And he's choosing to flash and draw a card.
I like the flash.
So that's the thing about it. Matt actually has a lot of time to play with. He's not in a rush to lose anytime soon. It's 2-5. So he can kind of play the slow game, trying to set up a big turn where he's able to push for game.
Fight or Flight here would be huge, or Rebuke. Rebuke would be huge, huge. We still have 2 mana up on Jimmy, so we know we have the counterspell available.
Yep, we have a lot of things open with 2 mana. We have Discipline, we have Challenge, we have On Guard, we have Defy, and that's the beauty of the green-orange deck. There's just a lot of powerful spells. And a Fight or Flight pushing back the Deadbloom Predator, saying, I want to get this hold.
This is telling our opponent for sure that we do not have the Deny. So Jimmy would have definitely, most likely, have denied that fight or flight to take the trade on the Kaisa there since he played a Dead Bloom. So this is telling Matt that next turn, he really doesn't have to worry about any counter spells, maybe just buff spells.
So if I was Matt here, I scored the point already with the Kaisa. I'm trying to move back into the base and set up as much might as possible. So next turn I can use all my mana for as many spells, like a bunch of cleaves, as many fighter flights. But here's the thing: every turn Matt has been activating a spell, kind of just pushing back the Dead Bloom Predators or saving his monsters, and he might not have enough cards. But every time he activated Dreaming Tree, he was able to cycle. So hopefully it is enough.
The unfortunate thing is that Jimmy just has no Aurora. It's
Yep.
rough playing 2 Dead Blooms.
And a cleave makes the Kaisa go up to 7, but we have to remember here, Dead Bloom Predator is going to be at 10 because of the Master Yi ability, holding alone, giving +2 might.
We're going to Annie pick our cleave back up, the play that we did before. So we're going to cleave and cleave on that on the Kaisa. No counterspell available. We know he doesn't have it for the most part. And then we're going to take out the Dead Bloom Predator. No Zonia's Hourglass was available to play last turn. No Aurora. It just seems like in the early game, Jimmy was kind of starving for cards using Disciplines just to straight up draw. Not getting Aurora, not getting the Catalyst. They're just at the bottom of his deck.
Yep, and that's the thing. I've definitely seen Master Yi's and other Dazzling Aurora decks win without Dazzling Aurora, especially Master Yi. He plays sometimes a mid-range game with Tasty Fey Folk to kind of lead into the Dazzling Aurora turns, but you definitely need Dazzling Aurora sometime eventually in the game to kind of just push through and cheat out as many points as possible, because just something one big guy every single turn might not be enough. And here comes down to Master Yi being able to come in ready, which is kind of like pseudo accelerate.
Even playing the Aurora, if you drew off the top now, is like so unfortunate because then you tap out completely. So even if he did draw the Aurora off the top here, I agree that the Mashi play was better. And now we're going to sabotage to look at our opponent's hand. Fight or flight, ride the wind, ride the wind. Oh, so no wonder we got rid of that ride the wind, because we have 2 of them. Well, we had 3 of them.
And just as a reminder, the anti-champion unit has been used. So the anti-champion unit lets you add back any spell back from the graveyard, often used as kind of a toolbox. But without that anti, he doesn't have access to the spells being discarded. The Master Yi coming down, it's going to be 6-4. Let's see what Matt has. The issue here is if Matt is able to protect it from the Master Yi, the Dead Bloom Predator can also just run up and try to go ahead and take a battlefield. And Matt, if I was Matt, I would not want a battlefield to be taken, because once a battlefield's taken, Jimmy has the option of using a charm, which potentially could ruin a lot of the math here. Ooh, and there is the Defy.
So he was going to fight or flight the merchant in order to move the merchant around, because he just needed more card draw. If you don't have any cards in your hand and the merchant moves, you won't discard anything, but you still get to draw a card. So he chose to let the Kaisa die, and then he was going to ride to win the merchant to get a free card draw to see if he can get anything off the top to win the game. But Jimmy, knowing his hand and knowing that he's on top deck mode, he gets 1 card this turn. He's like, nah, I'm going to deny that ride the win, so you don't get an additional card to play with on the next turn.
So what's really important here is that Matt definitely has a game shot here if he's able to just fight over this Master Yi, because Jimmy's already used 2 Dead Bloom Predators. There's not many ways to fight off a hold here. So if Matt may be able to win off of just trying to hold here, but with the appearance of Darius Trefarian, he might have the ability to push over both battlefields. With 5 mana open, there is a lot of things. 1 cleave just puts a Darius at 10, which definitely just runs over the Yi himself. And a second Darius, that's 2 7-might units coming in. And is that going to be lethal with 7, 10, 14, 24 points? I believe that's enough. That's 8. That's 18 showing on both, not both battlefields, but that's 8 showing with the Master Yi and 10 showing with the Dead Bloom Predator. Jimmy would need something like a on guard to take this.
Because Devlin was be at 10 and then at 12, but then in the bottom battlefield we have Darius for 7, the Kaisa for 4, and the Sneaky Deckhand for 2.
And
So we
here
have
go.
13 in the bottom battlefield. Even with the on guard,
It's not going to be enough,
we do not have enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing with this Annie deck. It tries to sneak together these type of wins. When it wins, it kind of falls over and barely makes it over, but it's just enough to win. And we are going to a game 3. This is what Matt needs. So the thing with the Dazzling Aurora decks are super powerful, super duper strong. However, they have to fight with themselves sometimes. They're not the most consistent decks. So every time you take it to a game 3, there's just a chance that the Dazzling Aurora player can just brick themselves. So Jimmy, even though he gets to start off going first this game, there's definitely just a chance he misses out on either Ramp or Dazzling Aurora. And then Annie's game plan is a lot more simple. It's just trying to kill your opponent. So it cares less about, inconsistent draws that the Master Yi might just have.
Yeah, we used our 2 strongest battlefields. We were able to, well, not able to, we, unfortunately, on our Obelisk of Power, did not get the catalyst to ramp us into the Aurora, but we also didn't have the Aurora, so both things just went wrong. And that's what happens, and that's why a lot of people kind of like the mid-range Master Yi, because it's not as high-rolly. When you don't get the Aurora, you still get to fight with your early game units. But if you don't have early game units, and then you don't get Aurora, there's no comeback potential.
And I just want to say thank you to all our watchers. My name is Ed, and I'm joined with Michael. We have a YouTube channel called Conquer and Hold. We also stream every Monday at 6:30, our Nexus nights. So if you like the content you are seeing now, come check us out Monday 6:30 at our Nexus night at this Twitch, or subscribe to us on YouTube, Conquer and Hold. But here we go. One of the coolest parts about playing an aggressive deck is they get to use the Arena's Greatest. If you don't know what the Arena's Greatest is that at the beginning phase of both players' first turn, they get to start off with an extra point. So it's kind of opposite Aspirant's Climb, and that's what Annie wants to do. Annie wants to score as many points as possible to make this Master Yi uncomfortable and play kind of weird. So that's a great pick from that. And then Vile Maw Lair from Jimmy. The cool thing about Master Yi is Master Yi gets to play a bunch of battlefields that might not kind of hamper him, but will definitely put a damper on your opponent. And with Vile Maw Lair, units can't move from here to base, so stuff like Flash is negligible. Stuff like Fight or Flight can't be used on it. So that is a good anti-meta tech for Jimmy.
Even our manual moves, a lot of players like to push in the Kaisa, drop a little guy, pull him back. Once that Kaisa's in, she's in. And Master Yi doesn't really care so much about pulling out of the battlefield because his ability is he wants to contest the battlefields. So if he's contesting that bottom battlefield, he's pretty much holding. We're going to Sneaky Deckhand on the Valid Mausoleum because if Sneaky Deckhand goes down, who cares? If we have a Kaisa on our following turn, we don't want to stick her in the lair. We want to stick her in the top battlefield. So we're going to Sneaky Deckhand the bottom battlefield, get our point, go to 1, and then next turn, we might actually be able to accelerate our Kaisa.
Yep, and then this is also a pivotal turn for Jimmy. Next turn is the 8-mana turn. He will not be playing Dazzling Aurora, but he has the option to stymie Matt's aggression by playing a Dead Bloom Predator. But the issue with playing the Dead Bloom Predator, it does de-ramp him, stopping him from playing Dazzling Aurora. So that's kind of the question you have to pose is, are you willing to de-ramp yourself to kind of stop your opponent from killing you?
So we are going to accelerate that Kaisa.
And this is all 3 games. Matt has put the pedal to the metal. Every game has literally started off with Sneaky Deckhand, accelerated Kaisa, kind of putting it on Jimmy to have something.
Yeah, Matt's card quality and timing has been really beneficial for him in the last 2 matches.
And then we can see here there is a Defy, I believe a Catalyst of Aeons. So there's a lot of options here, but again, this is not a Dazzling Aurora turn. And here is the Master Yi coming in accelerated. It's going to run up, probably kill the Kaisa to stop her from retreating. What's very important is you have to remember with these on-conquer effects, you kind of want to focus them first, solely because if they retreat, and reconquer back, you're back to square one, and they kind of plussed on you.
Oh, Matt didn't expect that, and he actually does not have a fight or flight or a flash in order to save that Kaisa. I was thinking that Mashi might have wanted to go to the bottom battlefield to get the free pick in the lair because you can't flash out your unit, but there was no flash or fight or flight available because he would have just done that instead of stacked deck. So Mashi going top lane was a very crucial play.
And here's the thing. I don't know if Matt can 100% kill this Master Yi unless he has something specifically like Darius Cleave or Darius in another one-drop. But being able to hold that point last turn was very important just because you want to score as many points as possible. 2 mana, what's coming down? It's a Traveling Merchant. Traveling Merchant's very strong, being able to try to filter your deck as much as possible, trying to draw as many answers to Jimmy's board.
Once we see the two drops coming out, that was a very weak turn on the Annie side, probably having maybe... No, if he had Ride the Wind, he would have used it last turn.
Just, and here's the Dazzling Aurora turn, actually, because he only deramped once. Does he have it? I don't believe it's there. It's a tasty Feyfolk to reinforce. I like this play because Master Yi has ganking. It's going to run over and slash and dash this, what is it called? This Traveling Merchant. Get him out of here.
Master Yi in the champ zone is just such a good turn. When your opponent is holding 2 battlefields, over the course of 2 turns, he can run and take one and accelerate down to the, gank down to the other one to be able to clear both. That's why Viremals is so cool, because Master Yi can take the top battlefield, and then anything that's in the lair is in Master Yi's trap, and then he can move down there and take it out himself as well.
And there's the thing, Matt only developed his board with 4 might last turn, and that's not going to cut it to the 6 showing on both sides, plus the Master Yi buff, that's 8 showing on both sides. It doesn't even answer it. Like, even if Matt had 1 cleave, it doesn't even answer anything, really. He needs multiple things. If I was him, I would be praying for a Darius here, because that already checks some of the units. But 2 mana open, there's a lot of bad stuff Jimmy could be activating. He could be activating a challenge. He could have anything up. But you know what? He's moving the Traveling Merchant probably just to draw. Yep. He needs the setup game. And it's 5-4. It's not like how it was last game where it was 5-1, where Matt can kind of take a turn off and just go, you know what? I'm going to set up a big turn.
We're going to cleave our Vi.
Ooh, and is this going to be a Ride the Wind here?
Yeah. This one I understand. That one.
Vi is going to be fat. There's multiple cards being sent to the graveyard. Even the Traveling Merchant basically counts for 2, movement and for himself.
Here's the thing. We know the deny is available, so we have to preemptively use the cleave. We have to preemptively use all of the Vi procs in order to get her big. And now we're going to Ride the Wind. But if this Ride the Wind gets denied, which it probably might, then all of those recycle procs and the cleave are wasted because Vi cannot fight anything without that Ride the Wind.
This play is very, very scary because of the Defy. But if Matt has 2 Ride the Winds, he has enough mana to activate it, and that might be the key turning point here. If he has 2 Ride the Winds, he is able to go ahead and take over both battlefields, but more importantly, he'll be able to try to hold over with the Poro. So putting him to the test, we know the Defy was here. If he has the second Ride the Wind coming down from Matt, a second Defy.
Oh my gosh.
And Matt literally had the pincer strike to go for game, but Jimmy slammed the door on him and said, get out of here. There's no win to be rode here.
I cannot believe he had a second Ride the Wind, but I cannot believe he had a second Defy. Wow, what a crazy double Defy. Now that Vi and double Defies are worthless, and we're going to get our double hold and go up to 6 because there is nothing the Vi can do to get in there. We used our trash, we made her big, we used the cleave, double Ride the Winds because we were trying to bait the Defy, but he had the second one.
Yep, and that's it. That's the thing. Matt was setting up this turn this entire time. He was kind of leaning into that play. And sometimes you have to put your opponent on better habit. The issue is sometimes you play against a god and they got double Defy.
Yeah, you got to put and the
And the
charm.
charm.
That
And
kind of
the-
seals it. Killing that Vi here is really unfortunate. If we move Vi into lair, then he can't move out. We're going to move Vi into the top though, because honestly, if the Tasty Fate Folk dies, it doesn't really matter. I think that if we move the Vi down to the Val's Mon's lair, it does play around the fight or flight, because we're not going to be able to fight or flight that Vi out of the lair. It works for, both you and your opponent cannot move out of that. But we're still baiting out the fight or flight. So we charm them in. If they have the fight or flight, then we baited it, and it's fine. We're going to double find your center in order to draw some cards and ramp a little more.
And that's the thing. Jimmy really showing the power of Master Yi's one-drop spells. Defy, Charm. These are just obscene spells in the green color. Being able to kind of hold down the fort and make it to where the boards are unclearable. Jimmy really just showing the power of the Master Yi deck. We can see a Flash with Matt. Flash is a great defensive card, but it's a card not suited to kind of crash through these boards. And I believe that's the only card in Matt's hand. And he did shuffle back a lot of cards with the Vi, so I'm pretty sure this Vi can only shuffle back 3, making it 6, which doesn't even put over the Tasty Fate Folk or the Master Yi. That's the issue here. Matt's trying to see if this is checkmate or not. It's not going to be... He needs to get rid of at least one battlefield, because this double hold will be 8-4 game. But Matt has used a plethora of spells, but don't forget he does have the Annie. He's able to add back one of the Ride the Winds. But is his graveyard fat enough? And there's the thing. Maybe Matt should have shuffled back less cards to try to play around this situation. And Matt does not have enough points, and there it is. Jimmy's able to take it down. Jimmy had to fight through, what is it called? Sneaky deckhand plus accelerated Kaisa every single game, and he's able to pull it out, showing the resiliency of the Wuju Blade Master, Master Yi.
That double defy turn was really crazy.
Yep. Just remember, holding on to counter spells is some of the greatest things you can be doing in this game. Kind of just holding on to counter spells to make sure that you can kind of checkmate your opponent. And that is going to be the first round. If you're just catching up with us, just a reminder, my name is Ed. I'm joined with Michael. Michael actually went over to try to get an interview, but I am Ed and Michael. We are Conquer and Hold, and we are streaming here at the People's Card Shop. It is a over 50-man case tournament for the Origins meta. We're trying to see who's the best and trying to prepare everybody for the Vegas regionals coming up. It might not be Spirit Forge, but reps are reps, and we're trying to practice because we got a lot of good players here in the building.
I cannot believe Jimmy won that second game without any Auroras at all.
Yep, and that just shows the power of just big units and properly using your spells. He definitely won from holding off the Defy and just using his charms in the correct places.
The double defy turn was so strong. I do think playing the Ride the Wind to bait the deny was a great play. Having the second one, and it's unfortunate. Sometimes you have to put your opponent on. You have the double defy or you don't, because you can't just play the entire game playing around the defy, because then you're losing tempo. Because every turn you're not playing a spell, they still have that defy in their hand. And in Riftbound and any other game with counterspells, that is the annoying part about counterspells. You have to play into it where it harms you the least amount, but you still have to play into it, because if you don't play into it, then they still get to keep that counterspell up for the whole game, and then they, on crucial turns, get to use it.